Chapter 3 Silent Weapon for Quiet Wars and the Bilderberg Group. William Cooper claims in his book entitled Behold a Pale Horse that he read top-secret documents that explained that silent weapon for quiet wars is the doctrine that was being adopted by the policy committee of the Bilderberg Group during its first meeting in 1954. He says that a found copy was in the possession of U.S. Naval Intelligence in 1969. He also says that a copy was found, dated May 1979, in 1986, in an IBM photocopier purchased at a surplus sale. David Icke also highlights its significance in his book entitled The Perception Deception. Here are some fascinating excerpts from the document, and no words have been altered. This publication marks the 25th anniversary of the Third World War, called the Quiet War, being conducted using subjective biological warfare, fought with silent weapons. It is patently impossible to discuss social engineering or the automation of a society, that is, the engineering of social automation systems on a national or worldwide scale, without implying extensive objectives of social control and destruction of human life, that is, slavery and genocide. This manual is in itself an analog declaration of intent. Such writing must be secured from public scrutiny, otherwise it might be recognized as a technically formal declaration of domestic war. Furthermore, whenever any person or group of persons in a position of great power and without full knowledge and consent of the public, uses such knowledge and methodology for economic conquest, it must be understood that a state of domestic warfare exists between said person or group of persons and the public. The solution of today's problems requires an approach which is ruthlessly candid, with no agonizing over religious, moral or cultural values. You have qualified for this project because of your ability to look at human society with cold objectivity and yet analyze and discuss your observations and conclusions with others of similar intellectual capacity without a loss of discretion or humility. Such virtues are exercised in your own best interest. Do not deviate from them. It goes on to say that silent weapon technology has evolved from operations research, or strategic and tactical methodology developed under the military management, Eisenhower, in England during World War II. The original purpose of operations research was to study the strategic and tactical problems of air and land defense with the objective of effective use of limited military resources against foreign enemies. It was soon recognized by those in positions of power, the CFR, that the same methods might be useful in totally controlling a society, but better tools were necessary. Social engineering requires the correlation of great amounts of constantly changing economic information, so a high-speed computerized data processing system was necessary which could race ahead of society and predict when society would arrive for capitulation. Relay computers were too slow, but the electronic computer, invented by Eckert and Mauchly in 1946, fitted the bill. The next breakthrough was the development of the simplex method of linear programming in 1947 by Dantzig. Then in 1948, the transistor invention promised great expansion of the computer field by reducing space and power requirements. With these three inventions under their direction, those in positions of power suspected that it was possible for them to control the whole world with the push of a button. Immediately the Rockefeller Foundation got in on the ground floor by making a 4-year grant to Harvard College, funding the Harvard Economic Research Project for the structure of the US economy. A year later, in 1949, the U.S. Air Force joined in 1952. The original grant period terminated and a high-level meeting of the elite Illuminati was held to determine the next phase of social operations research. The Quiet War was quietly declared by the international elite, the Bilderberg Group, at a meeting in 1954. In 1954, It was well recognized by those in positions of authority that it was only a matter of time, only a few decades, before the general public would be able to grasp and upset the cradle of power, for the very elements of the new silent weapon technology were as accessible for a public utopia as they were for providing a private utopia. The issue of primary concern, that of dominance, revolved around the subject of the energy sciences. Energy is recognized as the key to all activity on Earth. Natural science is the study of the sources and control of natural energy, and social science, theoretically expressed as economics, is the study of the sources and control of social energy. Both are bookkeeping systems. The bookkeeper can be king if the public can be kept ignorant of the methodology of the bookkeeping. All science is merely a means to an end. The means is knowledge. The end is control. The end always justifies the means. Beyond this remains only one issue: who will be the beneficiary? In 1954, this was the issue of primary concern, although the so-called moral issues were raised. In view of the law of natural selection, it was agreed that a nation or world of people who will not use their intelligence are no better than animals who do not have intelligence. Such people are beasts of burden and stakes on the table by choice and consent. Consequently, in the interest of future world order, peace and tranquility, it was decided to privately wage a quiet war against the American public with an ultimate objective of permanently shifting the natural and social energy wealth of the undisciplined and irresponsible many into the hands of the self-disciplined, responsible and worthy few. In order to implement this objective, it was necessary to create, secure, and apply new weapons which, as it turned out, were a class of weapons so subtle and sophisticated in their principle of operation and public appearance as to earn for themselves the name silent weapons. In order to achieve a totally predictable economy, the low-class elements of the society must be brought under total control, that is, must be housebroken, trained, and assigned a yoke and long-term social duties from a very early age before they have an opportunity to question the propriety of the matter. The quality of education given to the lower class must be of the poorest sort, so that the mode of ignorance isolating the inferior class from the superior class is and remains incomprehensible to the inferior class. With such an initial handicap, even bright lower-class individuals have little if any hope of extricating themselves from their assigned lot in life. This form of slavery is essential to maintaining some measure of social order, peace and tranquility for the ruling upper classes. Some other interesting excerpts from Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars included to keep the adult public attention diverted away from real social issues, and captivated by matters of no real importance. Keep the young public ignorant of real mathematics, real economics, real law, and real history. Keep the public entertainment below a 6th grade level. Keep the public busy with no time to keep the adult public attention diverted away from real social issues, and captivated by matters of no real importance. Keep the young public ignorant of real mathematics, real economics, real law, and real history. Keep the public entertainment below a 6th grade level. Keep the public busy with no time to think, back on the farm with the other animals. When the government is able to collect tax and seize property without just compensation, it is an indication that the public is ripe for surrender and is consenting to enslavement and legal encroachment. A good and easily quantified indicator of harvest time is the number of public citizens who pay income tax despite an obvious lack of reciprocal or honest service from the government. It also said the following about the war on the human psyche: it shoots situations, instead of bullets, propelled by data processing, instead of chemical reaction, originating from bits of data, instead of grains of gunpowder, from a computer, instead of a gun, operated by a computer programmer instead of a marksman, under the orders of a banking magnate, instead of a military general. It makes no obvious explosive noises, causes no obvious physical or mental injuries, and does not obviously interfere with anyone's daily social life, yet it makes an unmistakable noise, causes unmistakable physical and mental damage, and unmistakably interferes with daily social life, that is, unmistakable to a trained observer, one who knows what to look for. The public cannot comprehend this weapon and therefore cannot believe that they are being attacked and subdued by a weapon. The public might instinctively feel that something is wrong, but because of the technical nature of the silent weapon, they cannot express their feeling in a rational way or handle the problem with intelligence. Therefore they do not know how to cry for help and do not know how to associate with others to defend themselves against it. When a silent weapon is applied gradually to the public adjusts, adapts to its presence and learns to tolerate its encroachment on their lives until the pressure, psychological via economic, becomes too great and they crack up. Therefore the silent weapon is a type of biological warfare. It attacks the vitality, options and mobility of the individuals of a society by knowing, understanding, manipulating and attacking their sources of natural and social energy and their physical, mental and emotional strengths and weaknesses. The social welfare program is nothing more than an open-ended credit balance system which creates a false capital industry to give non-productive people a roof over their heads and food in their stomachs. This can be useful, however, because the recipients become state property in return for the gift, a standing army for the elite. Those who get hooked on the economic drug must go to the elite for a fix. If the people really cared about their fellow man, they would control their appetites so that they would not have to operate on a credit or welfare social system which steals from the worker to satisfy the bum. Since most of the general public will not exercise restraint, there are only two alternatives to reduce the economic inductance of the system. Firstly, let the populace bludgeon each other to death in war, which will only result in total destruction of the living earth, or secondly, take control of the world by the use of economic silent weapons in a form of quiet warfare and reduce the economic inductance of the world to a safe level by a process of benevolent slavery and genocide. The latter option has been taken as the obviously better option. At this point it should be crystal clear to the reader why absolute secrecy about the silent weapons is necessary. The general public refuses to improve its own mentality and its faith in its fellow man. It has become a herd of proliferating barbarians, and, so to speak, a blight upon the face of the earth. They do not care enough about economic science to learn why they have not been able to avoid war despite religious morality, and their religious or self-gratifying refusal to deal with earthly problems renders the solution of the earthly problem unreachable by them. It is left to those few who are truly willing to think and survive as the fittest to survive, to solve the problem for themselves as the few who really care. Otherwise, exposure of the silent weapon would destroy our only hope of preserving the seed of future true humanity. Experience has proven that the simplest method of securing a silent weapon and gaining control of the public is to keep the public undisciplined and ignorant of basic systems principles on the one hand, while keeping them confused, disorganized and distracted with matters of no real importance on the other hand. This is achieved by disengaging their minds, sabotaging their mental activities, providing a low-quality program of public education in maths, logic, systems design and economics and discouraging technical creativity. This is also achieved by engaging their emotions, increasing their self-indulgence and their indulgence in emotional and physical activities by unrelenting emotional affrontations and attacks by way of a constant barrage of sex, violence and wars in the media, especially on TV and in newspapers. This can also be done by giving them what they desire, in excess, junk food for thought, and depriving them of what they really need, rewriting history and law and subjecting the public to the deviant creation, thus being able to shift their thinking from personal needs to highly fabricated outside priorities. These preclude their interest in and discovery of the silent weapons of social automation technology. The general rule is that there is profit in confusion. The more confusion, the more profit. Therefore the best approach is to create problems and then offer the solutions. A silent weapon operates upon data obtained from a docile public by legal, but not always lawful, force. Much information is made available to silent weapon system programmers through the Internal Revenue Service, IRS. The information consists of the enforced delivery of well-organized data contained in federal and state tax forms collected, assembled and submitted by slave labor provided by taxpayers and employers. Furthermore, the number of such forms submitted to the IRS is a useful indicator of public consent, an important factor in strategic decision-making. The primary reason why the individual citizens of a country create a political structure is a subconscious wish or desire to perpetuate their own dependency relationship of childhood. Simply put, they want a human god to eliminate all risk from their life, pat them on the head, kiss their bruises, put a chicken on the dinner table, clothe their bodies, tuck them into bed at night and tell them that everything will be alright when they wake in the morning. The public demand is incredible, so the human god, the politician, meets incredibility with incredibility by promising the world and delivering nothing. So who is the bigger liar, the public or the Godfather? This public behavior is surrender born of fear, laziness and expediency. It is the basis of the welfare state as a strategic weapon, useful against a disgusting public. Most people want to be able to subdue and or kill other human beings which disturb their daily lives, but they do not want to have to cope with the moral and religious issues which such an overt act on their part might raise. Therefore, they assign the dirty work to others so as to keep the blood off their own hands. They rave about the inhumane treatment of animals and then sit down to a delicious hamburger from a whitewashed slaughterhouse down the street and out of sight. But even more hypocritical, they pay taxes to finance a professional association of hitmen collectively called politicians, and then complain about corruption in government. Few efforts of human behavior modification are more remarkable or more effective than that of the socio-military institution known as the draft. A primary purpose of a draft or other such institution is to instill, by intimidation, in the young males of a society the uncritical conviction that the government is omnipotent. He is soon taught that a prayer is slow to reverse what a bullet can do in an instant. Thus a man trained in a religious environment for 18 years of his life can, by this instrument of the government, be broken down, be purged of his fantasies and delusions in a matter of mere months. Once that conviction is instilled, all else becomes easy to instill. Even more interesting is the process by which a young man's parents, who purportedly love him, can be induced to send him off to war to his death. The draft is an institution of compulsory collective sacrifice and slavery, devised by the middle-aged and the elderly for the purpose of pressing the young into doing the public dirty work. It is marketed and sold to the public under the label of patriotic national service. Human beings are machines, levers which may be grasped and turned, and there is little real difference between automating a society and automating a shoe factory. Those who will not use their brains are no better off than those who have no brains, And so this mindless school of jellyfish, father, mother, son and otter, become useful beasts of burden or trainers of the same. Eye-opening words from the master plan. I'm sure you will agree, single acts of tyranny may be ascribed to the accidental opinion of the day, but a series of oppressions, begun at a distinguished period, and pursued unalterably through every change of ministers, too plainly proves a deliberate, systematic plan of reducing us to slavery. This is a quote by Thomas Jefferson.